Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to Ask a Trainer Tuesday. My name is Mike Brain. I am a sport coordinator in the Athletics and Recreation Department here at Seneca College, and I hope you had a great day so far. I'm also going to be joined by our head athletic therapist today, Steve Kopas, and we're going to be talking about overtraining and some tips for proper recovery and volume and intensity when it comes to your workout plan. Okay, so he's going to be joining us here in a second. And we'll kind of share different perspectives and give you some advice regarding your workout routine and how you can make sure that you're getting the most efficient amount out of those workouts. So I think Steve is ready to go, so I'm going to let him in. There he is. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Nice mustache.
Yeah, I was just going to actually do a public service announcement to apologize for the thing attached to my face. Yeah, it's not doing me any favors because I get the comments. So, but no, it is for a good cause. It's for Movember and just raise some money for men's health, mental health, and stuff like that. So, otherwise, this would not be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for joining me. And obviously, we're going to be talking about specifically overtraining. And obviously, as our head athletic therapist with Seneca's athletics and varsity, you're going to have obviously some perspectives when it comes to injury prevention. And even performance and stuff like that. So that's definitely why we wanted the expert panelist on today's session. And then, yeah, maybe we can just kind of share some different thoughts and approaches to training. And also, this is obviously at the recreation level. We're not just specifically speaking on high performance athletes. Although obviously there's some pretty high intense training, but even just people who are just staying active and doing workouts at home a couple times a week. Maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe you're pushing too hard to compensate for maybe not having consistency, which I do. I'm totally guilty of that. If I have a week where I just felt sluggish and wasn't quite doing as much activity as I normally would, I would, of course, do a crazy hard workout to think I'm making up for all that lost time, right? So it's pretty general for everybody, and I thought maybe we could talk about that. So do you have any kind of stuff that maybe is coming off the top of your head that you think everyone should know, or misconceptions and with training and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on a couple of the different points there for sure, right? Like everyone always wants to, after Thanksgiving, they go hard after Thanksgiving, burn off those extra calories that they had, that sort of idea. Is fine to do. We want to get out and exercise and do those things. The big thing with it is getting into an overtraining, or more commonly, actually, what happens is that it what's called more overreaching. So not quite into the overtraining stage. So overreaching is almost like that beginning stages of that overtrain, and that's where people kind of get caught up into a bit more, where they're not recovering enough from their exercises and they're doing too much too soon, and that's when they can get into those injuries or any other concerns that might happen with those situations.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Obviously, that's a term that you don't really quite hear often because overtraining seems to be the thing, right? Is an injury resulting from overtraining, but leading up to that is usually what causes that, or some form of chronic high intensity that you've been doing, and then eventually it results in an injury or depletion and in energy systems and stuff like that. So, and again, we're not trying to overwhelm you with information, but yeah. So overreaching is basically what we mean is there's what's called progressive overload. So when you have a program that you're working with, an exercise workout routine, and I'm doing 10 push-ups for 3 sets, and now I want to up it a bit to 12 push-ups for 3 sets, and you're working towards that progression. That's how you get stronger and more fit. But if you do too much of that too fast, you'll do what's called overreaching with excessive overload. You're adding too much weight or too much volume and intensity to your workouts, and that typically eventually will result in overtraining syndrome or chronic injuries or things like that. So that's kind of what you want to try to stay away from. We actually do have a question here. Which was, see if I can scroll to it. I do diet and exercise. I don't lose or gain weight. Okay. Okay, so obviously that's specific to your objectives, not necessarily overtraining, unless maybe you're overtraining and you're not seeing the results that they are part of your objective.
Mhm.
So obviously, maybe your first thought is, "Am I training too hard?" Because the results that you're seeking aren't possibly happening. So it might not necessarily be the training. If you have a regular training program and you're doing it consistently and you're getting proper sleep, and then obviously the nutrition is the significant component here. That might be something that needs to be looked at, or maybe just a different approach to what you're doing in your workouts as far as the exercises. So that would be something that we can always discuss another time. If you want to contact us, we can definitely speak on that behalf. Absolutely. And then just to kind of speak further on specifically overtraining, there's an old saying that was, and it's still around, especially in sports, is with reducing overtraining, is train smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Steve, you heard this because it's all about quantity versus quantity, quality versus quantity. So not necessarily train smarter, not harder, because you really want to be able to have both. You want to be able to train smarter and harder. How can I do this carefully and efficiently with good form, but also have that high intensity so that you are in that perfect zone? So you're not going into a high risk zone of potential injury, but you're also not low, or you're not doing quite enough. So how do you know what's enough? So do you have any tips as far as how to measure, how much is too much, or is what I'm doing enough? How do I know if I'm going to hurt myself? Anything like that?
Yeah, so a lot of it, like you said, the smarter, harder, that type of analogies, different things. So definitely intensity is something that you want to have that high intensity. But where problem is that people work at that high intensity, but keep that high quantity up as well. And that's where you run into your over injuries. You'd rather have the high intensity and not as much quantity of it. So give yourself that rest periods, because that's how we get into those different phases of those overreach or overtraining syndromes and injury, is that you're not having enough time for a body to recover from that intense workout. So the body doesn't have enough recovery time, and then it just adds on to each other, and that's when we can get into the injury and the different aspects of those overtraining or overreaching syndromes. The big thing that I think would work best as far as your guideline, how much to do or things that way. Couple different things is alternate your hard and light days. So if you're going to have a hard workout one day, the next day make it more of a light intensity, so that you have that recovery, but it's more of an active recovery. So you're not going as hard, but still have a little bit of a workout in. The other thing that you recommend is using a rate of perceived exertion scale, or creating a treatment workout log, right? So
Yep.
that workout log of what did you do that day? How did you feel physically, emotionally, other stressors happening in your life, and then your rate of perceived exertion. So was it super easy, like 1, or is it like as hard as you possibly could work out as being a 10? So a lot of that is, and then you can kind of guide, okay, well, that workout was a 9, so I definitely have to go work out more at like a 2 tomorrow, or take a day off, or that sort of idea to out those intensities a little bit, so you have the time to recover.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, like you had said, Steve, and actually previously, I think I might have done a video back in the summer regarding RPE scale, or perceived exertion. So it's a really good tool to use, because it's something that is subjective to the level of effort that you are basically experiencing in your workout.
Yeah, your rate of perceived exertion of it is going to be different than mine. So you might think it's a 6, and I might think it's a 9. But doing the exact same workout, right?
Yeah.
You have to find online. You Google RPE, and it has all kinds of different ones with different smiley faces, or different color coded ones that you can use. Whatever is going to correlate to how you interpret.
Yeah, and not even just from person to person, but even yourself. If you do a workout one day and you do that exact same workout 3 days later, and it feels more difficult, and it feels like it's just a lot more taxing on your system, whether it's aerobics or anaerobic, whatever it is. And there's so many different factors, and you almost kind of had brought those up, which is maybe what we considered external factors that aren't you're not considering, or how much sleep are you getting? is there some other stressors that are kind of been bothering you, or with your exams, or family, and there's a pandemic happening, by the way. So like all these things that would contribute to mental fatigue, which when you bring that to your workout, you're just not quite in it, and it's affecting the how you feel during your workout. So those are all things to consider. It's not all theoretical, right? It's not just like this workout will equal this result. And the RPE scale is a great way to do a self-assessment, so you can kind of monitor your effort throughout. And then obviously long term, what will end up happening is if you do that overreaching we talked about, leading to overtraining syndrome, it's basically, you'll know obviously when it's too late, because it will result in strains and tears and other forms of injuries that obviously you deal with all the time, right? So again, I don't want to throw out too many terms, but it's really simply periodization, which is how you kind of progress your workouts. And just simply said, start with, really kind of, if you taken a month off or 2 months off, don't go right into that intense workout that you've been wanting to do that you saw on Instagram or YouTube. And you'll know right away when you start doing it if it's too much for you. So you want to really make sure that it's appropriate for your fitness level at that given time. So those are kind of things that we suggest to prevent injuries from overtraining.
Knowledge of start low and go slow, right? So especially if you're starting out, kind of keep that in mind, right? Like you start out at lower intensities and slowly build yourself up to it. And make sure you always give yourself at least 1 day off a week of full recovery rest, in order to help kind of maintain and stay off some of those overuse injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, we'll have this discussion, and then we'll have another talk next week on how to get you motivated to get off the couch and exercise to begin with. And now we're talking about overtrain. No, you're doing too much. So we don't want to confuse everyone by saying we don't want to punish you for your activity.
You have to find, right?
Yeah. So no, that's great. No, if there's any other questions, please feel free, everyone, to put those in the comment section. Otherwise, that's for the most part, that's what we wanted to kind of get the message across, was appropriate program that you're working on. Make sure that the level of volume and intensity isn't too much for your current fitness level, and you can use the RPE perceived exertion scale to kind of measure your effort level while you're doing that. And as far as progressive overload, increasing the amount of intensity and volume to your workout progressively over time. And then obviously your sleep, nutrition, mental health, and your other personal matters that affect that. So that's pretty much in summary. Is there anything else you want to add?
Maybe just kind of, I'll talk quickly about some of the signs and symptoms of kind of overreaching, so people can be aware of.
Absolutely,
while they're doing stuff. So I mean, the big ones, there's that persistent muscle soreness. So we're gonna get muscle soreness if we do a normal workout, or if you're doing something first time doing something, or a new type of exercise. We normally get that delayed onset muscle soreness, we call it. So that's okay to have. That usually dissipates though within 24 hours to 36 hours. If that's staying there when you're doing workouts that you normally do for 3-4 days, then that's something to kind of keep in mind. Well, maybe we're overworking a little bit on it, right? Persistent fatigue, a decrease in your performance. If you normally are able to run a certain distance or lift a certain weight, and all of a sudden now that same weight is getting harder and harder to do, is another kind of alert that, hey, maybe I need to get more rest to recover. And that's kind of one of those circles issues, is we're not performing what we want to do, so you think, oh, I need to train harder and work harder to get more performance, but a days or two's rest is actually going to be more beneficial for you to recover and get that performance back, versus working harder and harder and harder doing it. So a couple of the big things that to look out for on those things. There's lots of other signs and symptoms with it, but those are the kind of key kind of indicators, I would say, to keep an eye out for those overtraining and overreaching stuff.
That's perfect. No, that's a good perspective there, especially what you had said about the decline in performance, because you might think that, I guess I need to go even harder. But that's not necessarily the case. And as long as you are smart and you are doing things that are safe and within your fitness level, then you should be okay. And obviously with the proper warm-up and flexibility and stretching, things like that will help even more prevent injuries. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in for this Ask a Trainer Tuesday. Any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, thank you so much, Steve, for helping out with providing your expertise today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right, guys. All right, take care. Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
All right. Bye, guys.